They told me to wear my dress blues. Polished boots, clean shave, no scowl. The brass wanted a human face for the first meeting with a galactic delegation. A smile, a handshake, a few scripted lines for the cameras. They didn't want the warship behind me to speak louder than the words we rehearsed. But the Titan behind me didn't whisper. It roared in silence. 57 kilometers of engineered fury, lined with coil guns that could erase moons and drive cores into stars. Humanity had learned, not evolved. We learned that the universe was cruel, predatory, and it didn't reward kindness. We called her judgment. Not because we thought we were gods. No, gods begged for mercy. Judgment offered none. I stood on the observation deck as the alien envoy's ship drifted into position, a silvery, elegant structure shaped like a petal caught in the wind. They called themselves the Seldari. Tall, blue-skinned, eyes like oil on water. They'd sent messages of peace. Dozens of species had, but peace didn't save the Mars colonies. It didn't bring back New Kyoto. "Commander Hale," my comm crackled. "They've docked. Final call for the delegation room." I tapped my comm. "Copy, on my way." I didn't trust them. None of us did. After what happened to the Zero's expedition, their screams still looped in the recovered data, we built judgment. A response, not a weapon. A message in steel. You don't get to prey on humanity without bleeding. The corridor to the delegation room was long and sterile, steel walls humming with the power of our engines. Marines stood at attention every 20 feet, their faces cold, unreadable. I saw the fear in their eyes, not of battle, but of what we were about to invite on board. The unknown wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a threat with pretty words. When I entered the chamber, I saw them. 3 Seldari. Graceful, calm, their expressions carved in serenity. But I'd read the briefings. They'd enslaved 2 lesser species. Their version of peace meant submission. The galaxy didn't trade favors. It demanded obedience. And we were the first species to say no with a clenched fist. "Commander Hale," the lead Seldari greeted, voice melodic but practiced. "On behalf of the Council of Concordant Species, we welcome humanity to the stars." I nodded, refusing to smile. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, I acknowledge your welcome." The translator buzzed softly as the words were exchanged. Behind me, our diplomatic officers sat stiffly, their smiles thinner than paper. "You bring a warship to a greeting," the second Seldari noted, his tone still courteous but with a subtle edge. "Is this your custom?" I didn't hesitate. "You bring centuries of conquest to the table. We thought it fair to balance the tone." For a moment, the room was still. The Seldari studied me. Their eyes flicked to the hollows of judgment rotating above the center table. The third finally spoke, her voice lower. "Earth has built something. Formidable. But unnecessary. You'll find no war among us." I leaned forward slightly. "We didn't build her for war. We built her so peace wouldn't come with shackles." That was the moment the Seldari understood. Maybe not our language or our culture, but the reason our ship made the stars shiver. We weren't scared of war. We were prepared to end it, permanently, if anyone tried to make us kneel. And yet, the meeting continued. Hollow pleasantries, cultural exchanges, promises of trade. But beneath the surface, the tension simmered like magma. I could feel it. They hadn't expected us to come this far, this fast. They didn't expect Earth to build a warship that dwarfed every known vessel in their fleets. As the delegation left, escorted back to their shuttle, I remained at the viewport, watching, waiting. Captain Levinson joined me, arms crossed. "They bought it?" he asked. I shook my head. "Number they're recalculating." "To attack?" "To submit," I said quietly. They just met a species that doesn't follow their rules, and we brought a ship to make that point clear. The galaxy wasn't ready for humanity, but we were ready for it, and the stars would never be the same again. After the Seldari left, things didn't return to normal. Not that normal existed anymore. Not since Earth's last stand. Not since Judgment came online. I spent the night in my quarters, barely sleeping. There was a quiet to space, a suffocating kind, like holding your breath too long and knowing no one's coming to save you. I used to like that silence. It felt pure. But now it whispered back. They were planning something. I could feel it. I reviewed the delegation footage 3 times before morning, rewatched their expressions frame by frame, the way the lead delegate's hands twitched at the mention of Mars, the pause when we showed Judgment's weapon readouts. It wasn't just fear. They weren't just impressed. They were panicking, the kind of panic that leads to desperation, and desperate enemies don't negotiate. They sabotage. At 0600, Captain Levinson summoned the senior officers to War Room 3. Scans picked up unusual readings on Deck 42, he said. Tech said it could be a glitch. I don't believe in glitches. Not today. We all knew what Deck 42 housed. That was the fusion core's tertiary relay, deep enough inside the ship that any interference there meant one thing. Someone was trying to disable us from within. I want full lockdown on all systems not required for life support and propulsion, Levinson continued. And I want Hale leading a Black Ops recon team into 42. I want answers, not guesses. I nodded. I'll take Sergeant Maddox and his squad. Maddox was a bastard in the best way. Rough, unforgiving, always 10 seconds away from choking someone out. But loyal. Loyal in that brutal, hardwired way that you can't teach anymore. He'd buried his family under the ashes of Europa when the Seldari's peacekeepers wiped the colony clean. He didn't want diplomacy. He wanted retribution. We suited up, black armor glinting under the emergency reds now pulsing through the auxiliary corridors. Every corner of the ship had eyes, but even Judgment's sensors could be tricked if you knew how. The Seldari knew how. As we descended toward Deck 42, I briefed the team. Minimal engagement unless absolutely necessary, I said. If it's sabotage, we secure the device. If it's a sleeper agent, we take them alive if possible. Dead if not. Maddox chuckled behind me. You know what I prefer. I know, I muttered. That's why I'm in front. The closer we got to the core, the colder it became. Not just physically, something else. Like the ship itself knew we were walking toward a betrayal, the kind that burns slowly and then explodes all at once. We breached the outer ring of 42 and found it. A distortion field. Faint but active, camouflaging something in the relay bay. Maddox tapped his visor. We've got tech from outside the solar system. Seldari signature. Energy spectrum doesn't match anything human. Scan it. Already did. You're not going to like this, Commander. He turned the data to my HUD. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a sleeper spike, the kind used to trigger meltdown conditions in fusion relays. Hidden beneath a shell of diplomacy and a bowing alien envoy, they had smuggled a goddamn kill switch onto the ship. I stared at the device. They smiled while planting this. They always do, Maddox growled. We didn't have time to be angry. Maddox and I worked with 2 engineers to disarm the spike. It was intricate, cloaked in harmonic dampeners that would have evaded most scans. They meant for it to activate only if Judgment-powered weapons passed a certain threshold, like if we needed to defend ourselves. Cowards. When we finally neutralized the device, Maddox exhaled hard and turned to me. So what now? We send a memo to command? Play it off as a diplomatic misunderstanding? I looked at the disabled device, the quiet betrayal it represented. Number, we make sure the Seldari understand what happens when they lie to us. We didn't call a war council. We didn't have to. Levinson already had the comm lines open when I returned. They tried to detonate our core. And they did it with the arrogance of empire, he said, voice flat. The council still wants to discuss next steps, but I think you and I both know the next step already walked through our doors. I nodded. They want to negotiate with a leash around our neck. Time to show them what humans do when someone grabs the chain. An hour later, judgment came alive. Not with weapons fire, not with threats, but with a maneuver. We powered the orbital engines and repositioned the ship directly between the Seldari envoy vessel and their exit route. They saw it for what it was, a message. You came smiling, but we saw your teeth. The Seldari demanded communication. We declined. For 8 hours, we held position, unmoving, unyielding, letting the tension twist their nerves like barbed wire. Then Levinson gave the order. Open a narrow-beam communication direct to their ship. Visual only. I stood in front of the transmitter. This is Commander Hale of the Titan-class warship Judgment. You brought sabotage to a diplomatic table. You attempted to assassinate every man and woman aboard this ship. We consider that an act of war. But humanity is offering you one more chance. You return to your council. You tell them Earth is not another world to be conquered or tamed. We're the edge they didn't see coming. We're the storm they tried to ignore. If you ever approach our space again with deceit or force, we won't just retaliate. We'll erase your ability to do it again, entirely. I cut the transmission. Maddox grunted. You think they'll back down? They won't have a choice, I said. We just showed them that even with a blade to our throat, we don't flinch. That scares people like them more than anything. 2 days passed. Silence. No word from the Seldari. No delegation. No apology. No war declaration. Just silence. Until Earth Command patched through a secure message. It was from the Council of Concordant Species, a formal statement. They were reviewing the diplomatic behavior of the Seldari. They promised transparency. They wanted to avoid escalation. Cowards. Every word was soaked in fear. They'd seen our ship. They'd seen us uncover sabotage without flinching. They knew that under our calm, we carried the fury of a species tired of bowing, tired of loss, and fully armed. Levinson met me later that evening on the aft deck, where stars burned in the black like old scars. They're going to keep pretending it didn't happen, he said, that this was all some misunderstanding. Let them. They're afraid. That's good. And you? Are you afraid? I shook my head. Not anymore. Not since Europa. Not since they murdered children and called it peace. He nodded slowly. We're writing history, Hale. Page by page. Ship by ship. Yeah, I said. But they're the ones who'll remember the chapter called Judgment. I didn't expect the call from Earth Command to come with so many caveats. Officially, Admiral Rice said, we're still in peacetime posture. The Council hasn't declared hostilities. The Seldari have denied everything. I stared at the screen, dead-eyed. Of course they did. Rice hesitated. That doesn't mean we believe them. But the diplomats want breathing room. They say humanity's future depends on cooperation. I leaned forward, fists clenched. Future cooperation with species that smuggle bombs onto our ship? She flinched, but didn't argue. Unofficially, we want your team to start gathering black-level intel. Anything off record, no trace, no leaks. The Council's hiding something, and we need to know what before this spirals. I didn't need to ask what black-level meant. It was the sort of work they deny in public and honor in silence. Copy, I said. I'll take Judgment into deep orbit and go dark. We'll sweep the relay sectors. Rice nodded. And Hale, don't get caught. The screen blinked out. Captain Levinson was already in the war room when I arrived. I figured you'd get the call. They want us to vanish, I said. No lights, no signals. Find out what the Council's covering up. He didn't argue. Seldari don't operate solo. If they brought a spike aboard Judgment, someone gave them the data, layouts, access codes. There's a leak in our system. Worse, he muttered. There's a collaborator. We both fell silent. It wasn't a new concept. Traitors. We'd dealt with them before, even during the Mars War. The idea that someone with Earth blood helped an alien species set a trap inside our flagship. That was treason in its dirtiest, most cowardly form. We set a new course that night. Judgment's engines dimmed, heat emissions dropped to stealth mode, and our signal beacon vanished. In galactic terms, we became a ghost, not gone, just forgotten. Maddox was waiting outside my quarters when I emerged. He didn't say anything at first, just handed me a data pad. What's this? Crew history, security rotations, docking access, the week before the Seldari arrived. I scanned the list. These were all cleared personnel. Not cleared enough, he said, tapping one name. Lieutenant Kieran Doss, systems engineer. He logged override codes at 0300 hours the night before the Seldari meeting. Didn't report it? Filed it under maintenance loop, but there was no scheduled repair. His logs were clean, too clean. I knew Doss. Quiet, efficient, no red flags, which was usually how it went. Real traitors didn't wave signs. They smiled while making sure the blade they buried wouldn't be found until too late. Where is he? Level 6, infirmary. Claims food poisoning. I gritted my teeth. Then let's pay him a visit. The infirmary smelled like antiseptic and fear. Doss sat upright in a cot, his face pale but alert. He froze when we entered. Commander, Sergeant, I didn't expect— Of course not, I said. You were expecting your little sabotage trick to go unnoticed. He tried to stand. Maddox shoved him back into the bed, one hand gripping his collar tight. You logged override codes, I said. The same night the Seldari planted their spike. You want to explain that, Lieutenant? Doss's eyes darted. I didn't know what it was for, I swear. I got a message. Said it was a diagnostic. From High Command. What channel? I don't know. It was encrypted. Looked official. That's how they always make it look, Maddox growled. But you never questioned why High Command needed you to log into the core without authorization? Doss swallowed hard. I didn't think I had a choice. I leaned closer. You always have a choice, and you chose wrong. He broke then. Tears, pleas, the usual breakdown. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. We had the logs pulled. Doss's channel wasn't from Earth. It bounced through 4 satellites tied to a council node. Whoever contacted him had mimicked our security stamps, embedded themselves so deep into our systems that even our warship didn't see them coming. We put Doss in containment. Levinson didn't even bother with a tribunal. He'll get processed back on Earth, after this mission. After we find the source, I said. Exactly. We headed into the Helion Reach, a graveyard stretch of dead satellites and mining husks orbiting a dying gas giant. It was the last known position of a Council probe ship, one that went dark 6 months ago after scanning an uncharted Earth relay. The same relay Judgment now approached. I stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the black. Scan the wreckage, I said. Use pulse imaging. The techs worked fast. One of them, Reyes, called out first. Commander, we've got movement. Something's alive out there. I stared at the readings. A ship? Number organic. That sent a chill through the room. Organic readings in deep space usually meant one of 2 things. Scavengers, or something worse. Something engineered, something grown for war. I ordered the drones out. 3 recon units zipped forward into the darkness. They scanned the wreckage. Twisted metal, half-vaporized hulls. But then, they found it. A pod. Not alien. Human. It was sealed tight, branded with a logo I hadn't seen since my time in the Mars Defense Force, Project Helios, a black-budget operation meant to develop human-alien interface tech. Cancelled a decade ago. Or so they said. The pod was transmitting. An Earth frequency. We brought it aboard. They say war makes monsters. But what we found inside that pod wasn't a monster. It was worse. It was a man, strapped to wires, tubes, skin burned and repaired so many times it looked more metal than flesh. He was alive. Barely. His eyes opened when we stabilized him, and he said one word. Judgment. I stepped forward. Who are you? Galen, Helios, Unit 3. My blood froze. There weren't supposed to be units. The project was shelved before human trials began, or so we were told. They lied, he croaked. Council, experiments, human interface. They didn't cancel. They outsourced it. To the Seldari. My hands curled into fists. Why? He coughed blood. They wanted humans that obeyed. Could speak Seldari code, read their tech. A Trojan, inside our own systems. And they used you? Not just me, hundreds. All erased. I escaped, brought the pod, didn't think I'd make it. We had him sedated, stabilized. But everything changed with his words. Earth didn't just tolerate the Council, it collaborated. Backdoor deals, secret experiments, selling off human prisoners to alien research labs in the name of advancement. Maddox stood beside me as I stared at the pod's data logs. This isn't just betrayal, he said. It's genocide, slow and quiet. And sanctioned, I whispered. We were pawns. Not anymore. I looked out the viewport at the silent stars. No, I said. Now we're the ones who write the terms. The silence that followed Galen's confession was heavier than gravity. It wrapped itself around every corridor of judgment, suffocating the trust we'd once had in command, if there was any left at all. I stood in the med bay, watching him sleep. If you could call it that. His body barely resembled anything human anymore. Burn scars covered most of him. Nerve regeneration wires pulsed through his limbs. His breath came out of a cracked voice box fused to his throat with old Seldari tech. Every inch of him screamed betrayal. He was Earth's dirty secret, dragged out of the dark. The door hissed open behind me. Levinson stepped in, carrying a tablet. You need to see this. I took it from him. A data stream glowed on the screen, pulled directly from the pod Galen arrived in. Deep files, hidden logs, some dated as far back as 12 years ago, human trials, joint projects with select galactic partners, test subject lists, coordinates of research outposts masquerading as mining colonies, and worst of all, clearances, Admiral Rice, General Strathmore, even 2 sitting councilmen from Earth's Central Union Board. The betrayal wasn't accidental. It wasn't a desperate gamble in wartime. It was institutional, planned, funded, authorized. How long do we keep pretending Earth's in control of its own future? I asked. Levinson sighed. Not much longer. He tapped the screen again, bringing up another entry. It was a video, fuzzy, degraded. But the audio was clear. Admiral Rice's voice. If the Seldari can give us tech we can reverse engineer, the cost is worth it. A few dissidents off the grid? Collateral. My stomach turned. Collateral. That's what my crew would have been if that spike had gone off. Maddox didn't wait for permission. He barged in 5 minutes later, a scowl already loaded. We're sitting on a ticking warhead, he growled, and Earth Command's the one who lit the fuse. I met his eyes. We're not following orders anymore, not their kind. So what then? We cut the leash? We do more than that, I said. We drag their secrets into the light. We plotted a new course, toward Sector 9 Kappa, one of the research sites flagged in Galen's data logs. Officially, it was a decommissioned Seldari listening post, uninhabited, abandoned. Unofficially, it had regular shipments logged under false trade manifests, civilian medical supplies, food, power cores. None of that made sense for a dead outpost. As Judgment moved through deep orbit, we prepared for boarding. I handpicked the team: Maddox, Reyes, Sargent, Hill, and Lieutenant Idris, a former smuggler turned recon officer who knew how to slip through security like a ghost. We landed on the surface of the asteroid moon, where the outpost was buried. No welcoming party, no gunfire, just cold stone and a silence that smelled of secrets. Inside, the halls were still powered, clean, maintained. No outpost sits like that unless someone's still home. We moved room by room. No resistance, not yet. Then we reached the containment block. Maddox stopped cold. Jesus. There were people, dozens, chained, not restrained, chained, like livestock. Most were unconscious. Some were conscious, barely. Their eyes followed us like animals too beaten to react. "They're human," Reyes whispered. And they were, but not fully. Some had implants, others had skin discoloration, alien splicing tech, hybrid experimentation. "What the hell were they doing here?" Hill asked. I found the terminal, pulled the logs, experiments, neural reconditioning, gene editing, cross-species cognitive fusion trials. They were trying to build a new kind of soldier. Not human, not Seldari. Something in between. Something obedient. One of the patients groaned. A woman. Maybe 30. She reached for me with trembling fingers. "They said we volunteered," she whispered. "I never did." I swallowed the bile in my throat. Idris scanned the rest of the compound. Heat signatures, 4 more levels below. Could be staff. "Secure them," I said. "I want names. I want data." We stormed the lower decks. No resistance until the 3rd sub-level. That's where they had the guards. Not soldiers, mercs. Paid by someone with deep pockets. We took them down fast. No casualties on our side. When we reached the command chamber, we found him. Dr. Halvin, Earthborn, University of New Avalon, once hailed as a humanitarian scientist. Now a butcher. He didn't even deny it. "They were dying anyway," he said. "Diseased, homeless, worthless. We gave them purpose." Maddox punched him before I could stop him. Broke his jaw in 2 places. "I should space you right now," Maddox growled. But I held up a hand. "He's worth more talking." We loaded everyone aboard Judgment. Every victim, every lab rat, every data core. We sealed the outpost. Then we set charges. When we left orbit, we watched it burn from space. The last screams of a place built on lies. Back aboard the ship, we reviewed the files. The experiments weren't limited to this one site. There were at least 6 more, spread across unregulated space, hidden under deep diplomatic covers. And worse, we found council clearance stamps on the transfers, which meant Earth's betrayal wasn't an isolated rot. It was systemic, galactic. This wasn't war. It was extermination with a smile. We called Rice again. This time she didn't bother to lie. "You were never supposed to find them," she said calmly. "And what will you do now? Blow the whistle? The Council will deny everything. Earth's leadership will label you a traitor." I stared at her. "We're already labeled. Might as well earn it." "We gave humanity a seat at the table," she hissed. "You didn't give us anything. You sold us for scraps." I ended the call. That night, I stood with Levinson on the observation deck. The stars were quiet, but not peaceful. He didn't say anything at first. Then, "We're not going back, are we?" "No," I said. "We can't." "Then what?" "We go rogue." He looked at me, unflinching. "All of Judgment?" I nodded. "They'll call us pirates, terrorists, madmen. But the truth stays alive. Yes. He exhaled. Then so do we. I turned to face him. This is mutiny against Earth Command. You understand that? He looked at the stars. It's not mutiny when you're already betrayed. Going rogue wasn't just a decision, it was a sentence. Once you crossed that line, there was no return, no courtroom defense, no appeal to morality or justice. You were hunted, erased, and turned into a cautionary tale for those who might ever think to question authority. But we weren't questioning it anymore. We were defying it. The crew had a right to know. Every single man and woman aboard Judgment deserved the truth before we crossed the threshold. I called a general assembly. First time in the warship's history, every off-duty crew member stood in the main hangar, hundreds deep, waiting. I stepped onto the platform, alone. No fanfare, no shield of rank. This ship was almost destroyed during what we were told was a peaceful diplomatic mission, I began. We discovered sabotage by the Seldari. And worse, we found evidence that Earth Command knew about it and did nothing. No one moved. We've uncovered proof of joint operations between the Concordant Council and members of Earth's leadership. Human experimentation. Secret research stations where our own people were turned into lab rats. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. You're angry. You should be. You're betrayed. All of us are. But you're also armed, trained, and standing aboard the most powerful warship mankind has ever built. And we're not going back to follow orders written by cowards and criminals. A silence followed, heavy and uncertain. Then Maddox stepped forward from the crowd. We stand with Hale, he said, voice loud. We finish what they tried to bury. Reyes stepped forward next. You told us the truth. That's more than Earth ever did. One by one they raised their fists, not in salute, but in defiance. Unity. Levinson gave me a small nod from the edge of the hangar. The message was clear. Judgment was mine now, ours. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were a reckoning. The first thing we did was cut our identifiers. No transponder, no registration beacon, no traceable comms. To the galaxy, Judgment no longer existed. Our next step was to hit a Council communications node. Not to destroy it, yet, but to pull from its deep archives. We needed to know what they were preparing, how far this infection spread. The node was located in the Jara Drift, orbiting a neutron star, shielded by 3 layers of Seldari gunships. We couldn't fight our way in, not without drawing the whole sector's attention. So we hacked it. Reyes and Idris took a stealth shuttle to the edge of the drift, rode solar waves to the blind spot, and cracked the network node using an old Earth backdoor left behind by some long-forgotten data war. It was dangerous. One wrong ping and they'd be vaporized. But they did it. What they found was worse than we imagined. The Council wasn't planning to suppress the truth. They were planning to spin it. A mass disinformation wave, already scripted and scheduled. Judgment would be labeled a hijacked vessel. I'd be painted as a radical terrorist infected with alien tech. The crew? Tragically manipulated victims. They even had footage mocked up, deepfakes. Maddox executing civilians, me delivering fake speeches about humanity's superiority. Holy hell, Maddox growled, watching the raw footage. They're manufacturing a villain. Because they know they're guilty, I said, and they know truth isn't enough to protect us. They're going to kill our name first, then try to kill us. Then we hit back, Reyes said. We release everything, burn their house down. No, I said. We don't release it. Not yet. Not while they control the channels. We take their megaphone, Levinson added, and we make them listen. I pointed at the map. There's one place that can do that. Outpost 9. Outpost 9 wasn't just a station. It was a broadcast hub, the oldest and most secure in known space, originally built during Earth's first wave of colonization. No council oversight, no filters, just raw comms. If we got there and uploaded the truth, Every colony, every world, every soldier, every civilian in the Union would see it. They'd know. But getting there meant crossing 3 controlled sectors, every one of them now looking for us. We prepared for the gauntlet. The first encounter came in the Kirill system. A Sildari patrol cruiser picked us up as we slingshotted past the moon of Vera. They didn't open fire. They hailed us. HMS Judgment, identify. This is Sovereign Patrol Alpha requesting confirmation of peaceful intent. I stepped into the command chair. This is Commander Hale. Your council sent saboteurs to murder us. We have chosen to reject their version of peace. A pause. You are in violation of Concordant Accord 47. Power down and prepare for boarding. I laughed. If you think you can board Judgment, you haven't read her specs. They fired the first shot. We returned it with interest. The battle lasted 6 minutes. We didn't destroy them. We left their engines crippled, their comms fried, and a beacon floating in space with a recorded message. Humanity isn't yours to control. We kept moving. The second gauntlet came through the Helix corridor. Mines, drones, old satellite defenses reactivated by the Council's growing paranoia. We didn't shoot our way through. We made them blind. Reyes and the tech crew sent phantom signals through the mines, triggering them in waves, creating safe paths that confused the tracking arrays. It was like threading a needle while drunk, but we made it. Then came the third, hardest barrier. A human fleet. 4 Earth-class destroyers. 1 cruiser. And at the center, the Concordia, Earth's flagship under Admiral Rice. I stood on the bridge of Judgment, watching their formation surround us like a closing noose. They've got us dead in the sky, Levinson said. Maddox was already walking toward the weapons console. Let's make them bleed. No, I said. Open communications. Direct to Rice. He blinked. You serious? Deadly. The channel opened. Her face appeared calm as ice. Commander Hale, you've become quite the problem. And you've become a coward in a uniform, I said. But this is your last chance. Let us through. You know we have the truth. You've seen the files. Her face darkened. And if I do nothing? You'll kill loyal officers? I leaned closer. Number, I'll release everything, right now. Not through your channels, through untraceable bursts scattered across fringe colonies, the kind of places where the truth can't be choked. She stared at me. Her jaw tightened. Behind her, officers watched with growing unease. Make your move, I said, but you'll never control the fallout. The screen went black. Seconds ticked. Then, the Earth fleet broke formation. Rice was gone. The ships powered down weapons. They let us pass. They're not ready to fight us, Levinson said. Not yet. They're scared, I replied, because for the first time in a century, the truth isn't theirs to manage. Outpost 9 came into view. We'd made it. The final move was simple. We docked, we uploaded, and then we let the galaxy watch. Every image, every file, every screaming log, every face, every chain, every betrayal. We told the truth, and the stars burned with it. Outpost 9 lit up like a dying sun. We'd expected ripple effects, shockwaves, a few riots, maybe some high-ranking resignations. We didn't expect planetary revolts. Within 48 hours of our upload, Earth's outer colonies erupted. Civilian networks across Mars, Titan, and the Kepler belt broadcast raw footage from the experimentation sites. Miners dropped their tools. Engineers walked off orbital rigs. Soldiers abandoned their stations in droves. And not just Earth's colonies. Other species, quiet ones who'd stayed on the sidelines, began asking questions. The Yeren Assembly demanded full council records on human collaboration projects. The Thurvi Trade Guild canceled 3 centuries-old pacts with the Sildari. Even factions within the council itself began leaking more data, eager to distance themselves from the bloodstain. The Council responded the only way they knew how: control. They called it the Great Interruption, a galaxy-wide communication blackout initiated by the Concordant Network Authority. Every relay station, every satellite node within their reach was forcibly disabled. Some burned. Others were simply turned off. They figured if the truth couldn't be stopped, it could be drowned in silence. But they forgot one thing. Humanity was born in silence. We didn't need networks to remember pain. We carried it in our bones. Inside Judgment, the crew had gone quiet too. Not out of fear, but focus. We were no longer running. We were preparing. I stood with Levinson on the bridge as the ship passed the orbit of Icarus Station, now abandoned after its crew downloaded our broadcast and fled. "All of them gone?" he asked, scanning the empty rings. "Every last one," I said. "Their final log said they were joining the Free Mariner Coalition. Told Earth they won't fly for liars." "Damn," he muttered. "Even the cowards are waking up." The Council issued a warrant for our capture 3 hours later. Every bounty hunter in the Orion Belt got the same ping: Judgment-class warship. Crew compromised. Commander Hale considered armed insurgent. Lethal force authorized. 100 million credits on my head. Maddox saw the bounty listing and laughed until he nearly choked. "That's it?" he said. "You'd think blowing up half their reputation would be worth at least 200? But jokes couldn't shield us from what came next. We were hit at Varelian's edge. A trap. A relay signal we'd been tracing, encrypted under Council code, turned out to be bait. As we dropped into low orbit, 2 Seldari dread ships uncloaked behind us. Not patrols. These were execution units. Their hulls shimmered with refractor fields, biofused energy weapons, powered by core siphons. One direct shot could puncture Judgment's outer armor. They didn't hail us. They just opened fire. Our shields took the first impact, staggering but holding. The second volley sheared across the starboard side, gutting a secondary thruster pod. "Return fire," I ordered. "Target the siphons." Maddox was already ahead of me. "Locked." Judgment roared. Our main coil gun fired a payload built for planetary defense. The projectile sliced through the void like a blade of plasma, struck the lead dreadship dead center, and kept going. Their core flared, bloomed, and collapsed. One down. The second dreadship pivoted, cloaking again. I turned to Reyes. "Track their refractor trail." "Too late," she snapped. "They're ghosted, reappearing in—" The ship rocked. An energy bolt slammed into our lower hull. Half the lights on the bridge flickered out. Fire suppression engaged in 3 lower decks. "Damage report." "Deck 12 venting atmosphere," Reyes shouted. "Autoseals holding. Minimal casualties. Power rerouted." "We can't play defense forever," Levinson growled. "We need a knockout." I looked at Maddox. "The cannon?" "Charged. Target location?" "Where they hit us. That's where they'll strike again." It was a gamble. But war is 90% guessing with confidence. We fired. The Titan cannon discharged a 1.2 terawatt pulse, laced with neutrino destabilizers. It didn't just hit space, it bent it. The cloaked dreadship reappeared mid-dodge, half its hull already vaporized. It didn't have time to scream. The explosion was brief, then gone. Just silence and debris. Maddox leaned back in his chair, sweating. Still not worth 200 million. We recovered some fragments from the wreckage. Seldari corpses, fused with machine parts, not armor, implantation. "They're making hybrids now," Reyes said, horrified, "trying to catch up." "They won't," I said coldly, "because we're not waiting." We changed course. We weren't going to survive this as fugitives, not forever. Eventually, they'd send more than dread ships, whole fleets, bioweapons, legal assassins with diplomatic immunity. So we decided to strike at the heart. The Concordant Assembly. A mobile capital, always drifting, always changing location to prevent attacks. But now, thanks to Galen's cracked data logs, we knew where it would be. Meridian 7, a superstructure orbiting a gas colossus, lined with 10 layers of defense, 50 warships, 500,000 in personnel, untouchable, unless you had something they wanted more than your corpse. We needed a distraction, so we sent out a signal. One more message, not just truth, but names. Every human collaborator, every alien scientist who signed off on human trials, every code, every log, every payout, broadcast to every corner of the colonies. Then we locked our destination to Meridian 7. They wouldn't just be waiting for us. They'd be seething. "Commander," Levinson said, watching the horizon swell with gas flare. "This is suicide." "No," I replied. "It's spectacle." He raised an eyebrow. "We gave them silence," I continued. "Then we gave them truth. Now we give them fire." I walked to the front of the bridge. "Load tactical torpedoes. Arm the cannon. Lock every system into combat override." Maddox's eyes gleamed. "We're going in loud." "Like hell itself." As Judgment approached Meridian 7, the sky lit up with response signals, defense grids activating, fighters scrambling, diplomats screaming into emergency channels. I opened a line. "This is Commander Hale of the Titan-class Warship, Judgment," I said. "We are not here to negotiate. We are here to deliver consequence." They didn't respond. They launched everything, and we did too. The stars went red. The sky above Meridian 7 looked like a dying god's last breath. Flames, debris, and hundreds of explosions blooming against the backdrop of an endless gas giant. We'd come for blood, and blood had answered. We were outnumbered, easily 50 ships to 1. But they'd never faced a Titan-class warship designed to end wars, not win them. On the Bridge of Judgment, the floor trembled beneath our feet. The shockwaves of nearby blasts cracked the viewports, despite their armored lining. Crew members shouted across consoles, relaying damage reports, shield failures, and firing solutions in the same breath. "Starboard coil gun 3 is offline," Reyes yelled. "Power node shorted." "Redirect power from deck 5, Levinson snapped. "Dump coolant into the forward core now or it's going critical." Outside, we blew through another Seldari frigate. It tried to dodge, but Judgment's main cannon tore through its belly with the indifference of a black hole. Then came the torpedo wave. "Brace!" I shouted. The bridge dimmed as kinetic dampeners kicked in. 6 torpedoes impacted the outer hull in sequence. The first 2 shattered harmlessly. The next 3 left molten trails across our side. The last one detonated just under the secondary fuel reserve. The ship groaned like a wounded beast. "Casualties on deck 19, Hill reported. "Containment holding. We've got wounded, but they're stable." "Keep firing," I said. "We stop now, we die." And that was the truth. This wasn't a tactical engagement. This was a statement, one written in wreckage. Every ship we destroyed, every shot we took, it all screamed the same message. You built this empire on lies and slavery, now we're here to bury it. Maddox grinned like a man made for this chaos. "Bringing up breach team, 30 seconds till we dock." "Confirmed," I replied. "No survivors." The Concordant Assembly wasn't just a council chamber. It was a fortress, sealed behind layers of bio-coded doors and AI-guarded checkpoints. But Maddox had prepared for that. We'd outfitted the breach team with Seldari tech, ripped from the wreckage of our last encounter. Fingerprint replicators, code injection spikes, portable gravity knives. If they'd thought this place was untouchable, they were about to learn different. I turned to Levinson. "You have command. Keep them off our back. And you?" "I'm going in." His mouth tightened. "If we lose you, you won't," I said, already walking. He didn't argue. He just saluted. Maddox met me by the launch bay. The team, 12 hardened Marines, were already suited up, rifles charged, armor black as night. "You ready to knock?" he asked, grinning. "Let's kick the door off its hinges." We breached at sub-level 3, where the assembly's staff dormitories were housed. The place was already under evacuation orders, civilians scattering like ants. Some screamed, others just stared. We didn't fire on them. We weren't here for panic. We were here for judgment. We moved fast, clearing hallways, securing access panels, hacking doors. Seldari guards tried to intercept us at checkpoint 6. Maddox dropped 3 before they could raise their weapons. Reyes disabled the auto turrets with a flash disruptor. "Assembly chambers above us," Hill said, "sealed with dual-phase biometric locks." Maddox tossed me a small device. "Courtesy of our friends back in that hybrid lab. Should cut through alien arrogance just fine." I attached it to the door. The metal hissed, then cracked, then melted, collapsing in on itself like wax under fire. And there they were, the assembly. 27 of the most powerful individuals in the galaxy, seated in a dome of crystalline arches and light, now wide-eyed, frozen. Most had never been this close to war. I stepped into the chamber, flanked by Maddox and 2 Marines. My weapon was slung across my chest, but I didn't raise it. I didn't have to. They'd seen the broadcast. They'd seen the truth. But nothing ever compares to facing the thing you tried to kill. "Commander Hale," one of them said, a Thurvi dignitary with 3 glittering eyes. "You're making a terrible mistake." "I already made that mistake," I said, "when I followed your piece." An older human counselor, Marin Voss, stood slowly. "This is an act of war." "No," I said coldly. "Everything you've done for the last 30 years was an act of war. This?" I gestured to the ruined sky outside the dome. "This is the consequence." They still tried to talk, to reason, to twist. Some begged, some offered bribes. But I wasn't there for negotiations. I was there to deliver history. You enslaved humans, you experimented on them, you buried the bodies under treaties and called it progress. I turned to the rest of the assembly. Every one of you signed the accords that allowed Earth to become your lab. You fed us promises and bred us like cattle. I held up the transmitter, a direct uplink to every remaining outpost, every ship still online, every fringe world that still had a comms receiver. "This is your sentence." I pressed the button. Judgment's inner systems surged. The ship's memory core, riddled with every data file, every tortured scream, every experiment log, broadcast into the chamber in full audio-visual. They couldn't look away. Children with cybernetic eyes screaming in labs, men flayed open for nervous mapping, women sedated as alien hybrids carved into their bones. It played and played, until even the counselors began to cry. But tears didn't matter. Not anymore. I raised my weapon. "For Europa, for Galen, for every forgotten soul beneath your foundation." The guards tried to interfere. Maddox shot them. 2 of the counselors tried to run. I stopped them. The chamber filled with smoke and fire, and the screams of cowards being reminded that their cruelty had consequences. We left 6 alive, not out of mercy, but to carry the warning. "Tell them," I said to Marin Voss as he knelt, bleeding. "Judgment came, and it's not finished." We returned to Judgment with half the station on fire behind us. Levinson had already pulled us into high orbit. The remaining defense fleet didn't chase. We'd won. Not because we killed them all, but because we made them bleed on a stage they'd thought was invincible. Back on the bridge, I stood as the stars calmed. "You think they'll come for us again?" Maddox asked. "Of course," I said, "but now they won't come as gods." He nodded slowly. "You changed the game." I looked at Judgment, at the cracks in her hull, The scars on her plating, the fire in her engines. No, I said. We ended it. We drifted for 3 days after Meridian 7 burned. No chase, no fleets, just silence. That silence, for once, wasn't filled with betrayal or fear. It was the kind of stillness that follows a finished war, the breath taken between surviving and remembering. The Assembly's throne world was crippled, its leaders exposed, its image shattered into cosmic dust. But that didn't mean it was over. The galaxy was in freefall. Colonies once loyal to the Council began severing ties. Riots turned into revolutions. Whole systems started broadcasting their own logs of corruption, abuse, exploitation, things hidden in bureaucratic shadows for decades. Everyone had something to confess, now that the fear was gone. And everyone, it seemed, had heard our name. Judgment was no longer a ship. It was a symbol of defiance, of vengeance, of truth. And symbols have a half-life of their own. Captain Levinson stood beside me on the command deck, staring out into the swirl of stars. His uniform was torn at the shoulder, burnt. He hadn't changed since the battle. "Reports are coming in," he said, voice gravelly. "Council remnants are consolidating around the inner trade routes. Earth Command's still fractured. Rice went dark. No one knows who's leading back home." "Doesn't matter," I said. "They'll eat each other trying to hold the leash." Maddox joined us, armor still blood-stained. He handed me a data pad. "Got a message," he said. "From Galen." I raised an eyebrow. "He's conscious?" "Barely. Hooked up to every system we've got. But he wanted you to see it." I opened the file. Galen's face appeared, gaunt and trembling, but his voice was clear. "Hale, if you're seeing this, you made it. Meridian fell. I always hoped someone would finish what I couldn't. But you didn't just fight back. You ended the nightmare. The Council, Earth Command, they built a cage. And you cracked it open with fire." He coughed hard, then continued. "But the cage isn't just physical. It's trust, belief, obedience. You broke the chains, but now someone has to keep them from being rebuilt. Someone has to make sure humanity doesn't forget how close we came to becoming pets." He paused. "Don't let them call you a monster, or a martyr. Be a mirror. Let the galaxy see itself. Unfiltered, ugly, honest." The message ended. I stood there, holding the pad, feeling something deeper than rage, deeper than vengeance, responsibility. Galen was right. This war hadn't been about weapons or territory. It had been about ownership. The Council didn't fear our technology. They feared our disobedience. And now, we were free. We held a funeral for the dead on Deck 6. Hundreds of crew, civilians, and liberated prisoners had died since the beginning of this mission. Some in silence, some screaming. All of them betrayed by the systems they trusted. We gave them fire. We vented their coffins into the void, letting them drift through the stars they'd never get to see. Maddox led the salute. Reyes played a piece of old Earth music. Something mournful. Something real. I didn't speak. I'd said enough. They deserved peace, not speeches. Later that night, Levinson called me into the war room. "We intercepted a transmission," he said. "Encrypted. Direct from Earth, another bounty?" "Number A plea." He handed me the tablet. It was from a woman named Ren Darrow, civilian governor of Mars, one of the few officials who hadn't sold humanity for Council favors. "Hale," she said, face solemn. "I don't know if you're alive, but if you are, we need you. Mars has cut ties with Earth Command. We're forming our own charter, free from the Council. But we need protection. They're coming for us. You're the only one who's proven they can't be stopped. If you can hear this, come home." I stared at the screen for a long time. Home. I hadn't thought about it in months, because for most of us on this ship, home was something we lost the day we stepped aboard Judgment. But maybe that was the point. Maybe Judgment wasn't just a weapon. Maybe it was a path back to something better. I looked up at Levinson. What do you think? I think Mars won't last long without help. Earth Command will either crush them or co-opt them. And if we step in, we become something worse than a symbol, he said. We become a government. That word made my stomach turn. I never wanted power. I wanted justice. But in this broken galaxy, maybe they were the same thing. I called a meeting. Not just officers, everyone, engineers, Marines, pilots, even the former prisoners from the labs. And I asked them one question. Do we keep fighting? Silence. Then Maddox stepped forward. Yes. He raised his hand. I didn't sign up to build an empire. I signed up to burn the old one down. But if we can build something better, I'm in. Reyes raised her hand next. Then Hill. Then one by one, the rest. It wasn't a vote. It was a promise. We changed course. Mars became our destination. But we didn't go quietly. We stopped in every rebel system we passed. Left behind fragments of Judgment's code, fragments of our story, blueprints, truth. We taught them how to fight, how to resist, how to build their own version of what we'd become. By the time we reached Mars, half the outer ring was flying colors that hadn't existed a month earlier. New flags, new creeds, not Earth, not the Council, something else. Something human. Mars shimmered red beneath us as we entered orbit. A voice crackled through our comms. This is Free Mars Authority. HMS Judgment, you are clear for descent. Welcome home. Maddox leaned over the console. You ever think we'd hear that? No, I said. And now that we have, we make sure no one ever silences it again. We landed. And for the first time in months, I stepped onto soil. Real ground. Not borrowed, not stolen, not given in peace talks. Earned. People gathered as we walked through the compound. Men and women with wide eyes, some in patched uniforms, some in work suits, some carrying weapons, others holding children. They didn't cheer, they didn't clap, they saluted. And I nodded. That was all we needed. We built something in time, a new order. Small, fragile, flawed, but real. We kept the ship above the atmosphere, always visible, a reminder. We named the new government the Accord of Ashes, because we were built on ruin, and because from ruin something true had finally risen. As for Judgment, she stayed alive.